God's mind. I'm always reflecting divine wisdom and divine intelligence. My brain symbolizes the capacity to think wisely and spiritually. God's ideas unfold within my mind in perfect sequence. I'm always poised, balanced, serene, and calm, knowing that God will provide the perfect solution. He has provided the perfect solution for all my needs. Amen. You say amen. I say, God, you promise. You say, Selah. I say, God, you promised. God, you promised. They're not going to get away with what they've gotten away with. The demons and devils and spiritual wickedness in high places for 400 something plus and thousands of years. You said that this land belongs to the children of Israel, and those who come in love and in sync, with the 12 tribes, they all will fall in line, entering the 12 gates, 12 gates of a promised land where we can grow our fruits and vegetables and eggs, coconut eggs for free, where we're not paying for water bills, where your water was free, free living water. Let's talk about freedom today. I want to talk about freedom today. I got a scripture, but that scripture gonna come in a minute. But let me just remind people about what Jesus said about these days and times. What Jesus said about these days and times. Let me get these glasses together. Let me get these glasses. What these? Look. Oh, Canna Dummy, greater light. Greater light, Canna Dummy. You here bright and early. You look like you was here before I got here. You look like you was there in the chat before I even got here, Jesus said, so if someone tells you the Messiah has returned and is out there in the desert, he didn't say, well, if they say the Messiah has returned, if you say the Messiah has returned out there in the desert, don't go bother to go and look. Or if he is hiding in a certain place, if he hiding, we know Jesus, when he comes, ain't gonna be no hiding, Ain't gonna be no hiding. Then don't believe it, because we already know it ain't gonna be hidden. Every eye shall see. For as the lightning flashes across the skies from the east to the west, so shall my coming be when I, the Messiah, return. The lightning across the skies from the east and the west is all those circuits wired in your brain, And what they're about to attack, they're gonna try to subdue the lightning through the supraforma right here. You know, like the heads of a battery, the tip of a battery. This right here, I tell you, my Bible pressed that. This right here is the tip of the battery, the tip of your light. That's why a blind man could see. Even a colored blind man could still see. But a blind man can still see because the light, this is what activates everything in our brains from the lights on the outside. Right here. This is where the cabal begins. Okay? This is why scalping started here. It was here. Scalping didn't have to do with nothing up here. Yeah, you could sever, but if they severed up here and the healing begins here. Okay? Stay with me. Stay with me now. Stay with me. And wherever the carcass is, there the vultures will gather. So the carcass, if you're thinking death, you're thinking slavery, confined to something. And what the government is that's why they have the black caucuses and the white caucuses. And their emblem is the vulture. It's not the eagle, it's the vulture. Immediately after the persecution in those days, the sun will be darkened. After the 400 years of persecution, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give, it won't give light. And you know what's going to happen? That's why they got all the military ready. Why they got the military ready just for a couple of minutes of darkness? They don't have the military out when we be in darkness all night on the shadow hours when we about to go to bed. Huh? So for a couple of minutes, let me keep on. Let me keep going. And the stars will seem to fall. That happened the other day. They made it. Okay, look. If I hadn't said it first, they would have ran that in the ground. They would have been like, NASA would have been like, yes, such and such and such. No, that was man-made. And then they turned around and waited a couple of hours later and said, yeah, China, something from they bags of trash in space into the atmosphere and went over there in Los Angeles. Elon, cut that mess out, y'all liars. That was China saying, y'all get ready. That was their signal. And the powers overshadowing the earth will be convulsed. So right now, all of the government entities are preparing. They having seizures. They're about to siege. They're having seizures on how they're going to respond to us. While people are still having parties and basketball games and football games and all, and buying their glasses to sit and look at something that happened 400 years ago. Now, let me show you the breakdown of that Francis Scott Key Bridge. That star span of time, glad banner, and what it represented is what they're resurrecting when they finish with all their frequencies of the last signal. Jesus said, and the last signal. Then the last signal of the coming will appear in the heavens, and there will be a deep mourning all around the earth. This is where it's going to be mourning. But joy will come in the morning for the children of Israel. The joy will come in the morning for those who have love and light and are prepared for what's about to come, because all it's going to take is a little bit of hatred in your heart to be able to join the war where Gog and Magog is trying to keep those who want to be free, who know that they're free, but something about the atmosphere and the simulations have got them locked. So now you know why a caged bird sings, huh? The caged bird sings because in the caged bird mind, I know I'm free. But I'm still in this cell. So hear ye, hear ye. I decided to do a little journalistic reenactment with my trusty assistant. One of my friends said, well, really, right now, he is the only friend I have right now. and not in that type of way, but in a spiritual sense where I can talk freely what's on my mind and don't get that pushback. Right. He said, yeah, when you write it, make sure you don't use AI. Huh? Woo! So here we go. First off, the thing about Francis Scott Key, when he wrote the Star Spangled Banner, huh? Here's 2 or 3 things happening with the Star Spangled Banner. The bridge in his name that says that a man are free, which he was a defense attorney for slavery, but he was raised on the red earth. Huh? He was raised on a red earth plantation. Not raised, that was what his family owned. And to this day, that plantation is a significant part in Maryland, huh? Maryland. So he defend the slaves, but then go home and tell the slaves to get to work. Now, here's where the signal going over LSU, where women are deciding, well, I don't feel like I have to stay the Star Spangled Banner because we know we ain't really free, even though I'm getting this education so that I'll be able to fight for freedom. And they telling them, well, we'll take your scholarship if you don't be here on time to sing the Star Spangled Banner that was made so that you could be free if you sing it. Now, why would that be so enveloped into this great eclipse? Even with NASA saying, look, we're looking back at Earth, and Earth is a big red ball. I thought Mars was red. Uh-oh, that sounds like London McLovin them thing. Mars is Earth. Huh? The moon is Earth. Huh? But why am I saying that and correlating that with Francis Scott Key? And the rocket's red glare. The bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag, what is their flag? Their flag is a symbolism of slavery. Now, what does this have to do with the Bible? Because one of the most significant cases that put Francis Scott Key on the map was the antelope. The antelope? The antelope. What's the antelope? A ship. An antelope? I thought an antelope was an animal. A ship. Now, you just said it was connected to the Bible. You talking about animals and ships. Yeah, I'm talking about animals and ships. Isaiah, and I'm going to get to that too, refers to Israel while on or as antelopes. Say what? Everything is connected. Nothing is a coincidence. Now, but you always talk about Federal Register, Abigail. Yeah, Federal Register on it too. Just today, they made sure we go endangered species. If they want to be free, we gonna put them back on an endangered species list. Everything that's connected to a lion who has a sickle cell, lions of Judah, the one from New Orleans, look, the one from Africa, let me see if it's 12 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It got to be 12. If it's 11, it's one more missing somewhere. Anything that's connected, because they consider us in assimilation, referred to us as animals. They said they did so much splicing in Egypt, according to their scientific researches and development, that all of us have some type of animal species within us. So right here, they got their 12 tribes. People who consider that they is descendants of turtles, they up here. People who consider they are descendants of lemurs, cheetahs, But guess what's on here the most? What I see for me, They got the tamarins up here. They got the African lions. Now, we know African don't mean African. But I'm just saying. Oh, yes, I got it all good and laid out today. All this is about Francis Scott Key. And to resurrect what he stood for. Everybody looking at George Washington, this president, that president, this person in Congress. This is what they're resurrecting. That he could go out and work and say that he's helping slaves. He's helping people be free. And was all up in about the war that would have some be free and some not free. As a matter of fact, that same antelope confirms that in their documents that Florida was still in slavery and still doing slave ship mentality. But obviously, there was some point where slaves wasn't coming over on the boats. But Spain wanted to try to traffic some slaves in, or the Spaniards. And they missed. And the government said, no, y'all know we stopped that. We don't allow slaves. So the boat had to get turned around, and that's how it ended up in Savannah. And Francis Scott Key every day would go and work to fight for those Africans that came over for the first time on a boat, that they could be free, but then go home and get his slaves on his plantation to go to work. It's like reparations. Can a dummy. Latrell Tinwell. Before I get started, let me advertise the color for the day in the drink of the drinks. Y'all done seen me with the red. You done seen me with the green. Today, what color is that? Let me turn on the light so you can get a good look. What color is that? What color is that? Ooh. Ooh. What is this recipe? What is this recipe? You said something about the AI music gives you the creep. Well, here, let me go ahead and play some AI music while I drink this recipe for a moment. I'm going to play some AI music just for you. Huh? I'm going to play some AI music just for you. This right here is coconut, ginger, honey, and cabbage. Y'all know I love me some purple cabbage. They call it red cabbage in the stores, but it's purple cabbage. I love me some, but that's this recipe right here. Let's see. Let me get my first little taste. Let's see. Now that cabbage makes it really rooty. I should have put a little bit more ginger in it. But here we go. This one for you, Canna Dummy. Huh? This one's for you. My AI song. Since it's you, I'm going to play this version.
Yourself who has been created to a true knowledge according to the image of the one who created him. The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. Those who live in a dark land, the light will shine on them. God's promise, 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 promise. Deep God's promise, 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 promise. Loud for God's mind is my mind, my mind is light. I am in all ways reflecting His sight. In all ways I acknowledge, no knowledge, no college. Ooh, God, you promised that great day will come. Yes, God, you promised that I will see my son. You promised that He is by your side, and nothing can separate this love inside. No masters, no doctors can prescribe ways in my callings. Only His ways, oh, ancient of days can correct. He reflects the path I acknowledge. Ooh, God, keep your promise. Scream. God's promise, 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 promise. Promise, promise. God's mind is my mind is light. I am in all ways reflecting His might. I am in all ways refracting His sight. In all ways I acknowledge, no knowledge, no college. Oh God, you promised that great day will come. Yes, God, you promised that I will see my son. You promised that He is by your side, and nothing can separate this. No masters, no doctors can prescribe ways in my callings. Only His ways, oh, what's on the new self who is being created to a true knowledge according to the image of the one who created him. The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. Those who live in a dark land, the light will shine on them. God's promise, 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 promise. my mind is light. I am in all ways reflecting your size, in all ways I acknowledge.
Did that run you away, Canna Dummy? Was it creepy enough for you? Huh? Was it creepy enough to run you away, Canna Dummy? Let me read some more on Francis Scott Key's Star Spangled Banner. What you would prefer this? You prefer to hear it like this, huh? Because look, you be out there growing plants, but you have to use fertilizer. So you use some type of other source to help you grow your plants. So you just go ahead and let them grow wild, huh? So I utilize, the beats that AI have, which artificial intelligent music has been ever since they created digital sound. But I know you only play the clarinet and probably the drums. You don't use the digital and electronics behind it. All those electronics in the 80s and the late 70s had a chip of artificial intelligence behind it. But that's okay. But since it's creepy to you, you probably would prefer it like this. And the rockets, you probably done teared up at the national anthem, especially if, wait a minute. Oh, say does that star spangled, you probably, have gotten emotional even though you were Canadian. But since the AI music creeps you, so I began to assume that Francis Scott Key isn't real because all the history books that I have here, I just assume he's a simulation because I have books, like I showed one of them the other day, that goes through the span of history. And as important as he's supposed to be in history, he's not in the first part of that timeline that expands from like something BC all the way to 2000, which the book was, I think, printed in the 19, hold up. Let me tell you exactly that when this Webster's New World Dictionary, the last president they have in there is President Reagan. So let's see. It don't show the copyright dates and stuff for this in a year on this book. But in the timeline, again, the timeline in history begins all the way 3000 BC and ends with Martin Luther King and what's his name, Gandhi, face in 2000. But I didn't see Francis Scott Key in this one. I don't see him in the other book there. And even in the learning companions that I have, these books. So I said, I wonder if Francis Scott Key is a simulation. So I asked Copilot. And he said, no, Francis Scott Key was real, a true being. No, I asked, was he a true being or a pen-named character? And he said, nope, Francis Scott Key was indeed a real person. Was real. He was an American lawyer, author, a poet, born August 1st, 1779 in Frederick County, Maryland, now called Carroll County. Key, now I'm thinking Key West, is best known as the author of the text of the American National Anthem, the Star Spangled Banner. During the War of 1812, he observed the British bombardment of Fort McHenry and was inspired to write the poem, Defense of Fort M. Henry, and he takes off the C. He removes the C. which later became the lyrics for the anthem. He also worked as a lawyer in Maryland and Washington, D.C. So he was a lawyer for 2 jurisdictions and argued numerous cases before the Supreme Court. Now, this is what Mr. Co-pilot, my assistant, had to go ahead and add, and he put it in red. He said, well, while he owned slaves, he also represented some seeking freedom and criticized slavery publicly. There we are. This is what the government is resurrecting at this point. They saying we continue to fight for equality. Even though we believe in slavery and we own slaves and we fight or make you think we're fighting for your slavery, your right to be free, and then we go home and tell our slaves to go to work. Okay, so that was the first part of that. While he owned slaves, he also represented some slaves seeking freedom and criticized slavery publicly. So these young women, first off, they were late to sing the Star Spangled Banner. And then they were threatened that they will lose their education funds or whatever it is, whatever other threats, if they don't be on time to sing a song written by a man who owned slaves but defended freedom. And then they're going to blow up his bridge as a signal. Signaport say, you get ready now, because we reenacted everything. If they sleep, if they want to stay asleep, we going to keep them asleep. Y'all get ready. China debris just happened to go over Los Angeles. That was a whole sign that somebody say, we ready too. Everybody's sending all their signals to let them know they ready. Even down to that earthquake in Taiwan. I don't care how many people they say died. That right there is a whole reenacted simulation. And I remember some of the buildings that they showed looked like the same earthquake that they just had a few years ago with the same buildings. That was their symbol. Look, we ready too. That's the first time I ever seen an earthquake, and in my spirit said, that's just a simulation. So I asked, what was the name of Francis Scott Key's plantation? What's wrong with you, Canada dummy? You need some of this purple. You need some of this ultraviolet light right here. Get you some of this ultraviolet light that I made. You need some of this. So I say, hey, co-pilot, what was the name of Francis Scott Key plantation? Francis Scott Key was born on the Terra Rubra plantation, and the Terra Rubra means red earth. Yeah, that plantation's still up there. I've said this time after time. If they really want people to be free, why they still got plantations? Just the way they knocked down a lot of them statues. Them whole plantations should be gutted out and turned into I don't know, something that would benefit people. So Carroll County, Maryland, Francis Scott Key's birth, that means not only was he born on the plantation because his family owned the plantation, his family owned the plantation at all, right? The plantation is 1 mile south of, here's the key, Keysville. Oh, every time you hear Ville in the villain, huh? Keysville. Key, known for writing the lyrics to the Star Spangled Banner, spent his early years on this estate. He spent his early years there, went to school, came back, and still owned it. That's why I said he was a lawyer in Maryland, and I guess in Maryland, he was making sure he could be able to keep his slaves. And in Washington, he was pretending he would fight for slavery. So I asked, well, which cases are documented in the Supreme Court where he defended free slaves? Francis Scott Key, despite being a slave owner from an old Maryland plantation family, was an early and ardent opponent of slave trafficking. He treated his own slaves humanely. He was part of the Humane Society. Yeah, right. He treated his own slaves humanely, and even freed several during his lifetime. He freed some of them. Now, that sentence was about his own slaves. He also provided legal advice to impoverished free blacks and slaves in Washington. One notable case where he defended free speech rights related to slavery. Right. Okay, so his song says land of the free, home of the brave. He owned slaves and fought for free blacks to be able to have freedom of speech, which today they're saying that the free blacks that are educated, that decide that they don't want to sing a song, can be reprimanded if they don't sing. Or if they don't be there to listen to something they don't want to hear. In this case, now this is all about religion now. I'm telling you, even though this is just the preamble of the continued movement where they're resurrecting the same old story. Within a different infrastructure, where the infrastructure is now that we're moving into light codes, we have to make sure that we will star spangled your light. Your light would be the bird, the cage bird singing. So one notable case where he defended free speech rights related to slavery was United States versus Reuben Crandall. So we got the Ruby, we got the Rubra, and we got NASA out there talking about James Webb looking back at Earth right now, sending photographs that Earth has a red glare. In this case, Key prosecuted a New York doctor living in Georgetown for possessing abolitionist pamphlets. The trial made national headlines and raised the question of whether the property rights of slaveholders outweigh the free speech rights of those arguing for slavery's abolitionists. Additionally, Key became involved in the legal battle to free slaves of the ship Antelope. Now, like I told you, I'm going to go to the Bible on this one. Dedicating his own personal resources to win their freedom. His own personal sources to win their freedom. Where? So that they could be slaves up there on his plantation. This legal fight lasted 7 years and was brought before the Supreme Court in 1825. Despite his complicated legacy, Key's actions in these cases demonstrated his engagement with issues related to slavery and human rights. So I asked for co-pilot to explain the story of the ship called Antelope. The Antelope was a ship at the center of a dramatic legal battle over the international slave trade. Here's the story, the background. In 1819, the importation of slaves into the United States became illegal under the Act prohibiting importation of slaves. The act allowed for the capture of slave ships and the removal of Africans found on board. The Antelope, originally built in the U.S., so this slave ship was originally built in the U.S. and was later sold to a Spanish owner named, here comes the Phoenix Rising, named Phoenix, and licensed by the Spanish government to carry slaves from Africa to Cuba. On June 29th, 1820, the U.S. Revenue Marine Cutters of Dallas. If I tell you, go back, and if I could pinpoint all the bills that I did with these words over the past 6 months. The Revenue Marine Cutter Dallas captured the Antelope off the coast of Florida, which was still Spanish territory at the time, on suspicion of illegally importing slaves into the United States. The ship had been involved in complex series of events, including being captured by a privateer renamed and used to transport slaves from other ships. The Antelope, its crew, and nearly 280 Africans were taken to Savannah, Georgia. The legal battle. The representatives from the Spanish and Portuguese governments filed claims for ownership of the Africans. So now the Spanish owners of Florida was trying to get their slaves from Francis Scott Key, I guess. The United States also filed to retain custody of the Africans, intending to provide their return passage to Africa. The case reached Supreme Court in 1825. Mind you, I haven't done the research and development to go and see if all this information is in the books on the Supreme Court, but I'm just telling you the information that co-pilot gave me. So Chief Justice John Marshall concluded that the possession on board a vessel was evidence of property. Approximately 120 slaves were repatriated to the American Colonization Society colony in what is now Liberia. About 30 slaves were ruled to be the property of Spanish claimants and went to slavery in Florida. So only 30 of those individuals off that ship stayed in the United States. And the rest were supposedly returned to Africa. Now, ain't that something? Okay, that's how they telling the story. The Antelope court records reveal international intrigue, politics, and conflicting views on the slave trade during this pivotal moment in history. So then I say, well, where's the document located if the representation of Francis Scott Key in the matter, and what year was slavery abolished in Florida? So Francis Scott Key, the author of American National Anthem, Star Spangled Banner, was a lawyer who worked on important cases, including arguing before the Supreme Court. He was nominated for the district attorney of the District of Columbia by President Andrew Jackson and served from 1833 to 1841. As for slavery in Florida was theoretically abolished in 1863 in Emancipation Proclamation issued by President Lincoln. Although, and I'm rambling through that because I like most of us know this history that are here. Issued by President Lincoln, although as the state was then part of the Confederacy, this had little immediate effect. The end of slavery was made formal by the ratification of the 13th Amendment in December 1865. Key's legacy was complex and both criticized, blah, blah, blah. So now my mind is on his plantation. So I asked, well, what is the meaning of terra rubra or rubra? Terra rubra is Latin for the term that literally means red earth. But I thought like red clay and all was a Southern thing. And I had no idea that earth was considered red. So what does he mean when he say red earth? Is that a symbol, symbolic meaning for where he think he's from? Is he a Martian? But again, based on all the things surrounding the Star Spangled Banner and the rockets' red glare and those rockets that they supposed to be sending to the moon, and NASA right now proclaiming or saying, quote unquote, that whatever cameras they have out there looking at Earth right now, that Earth has a red glare. Earth looks red. So it's not the big blue ball right now, huh? Okay. It refers to the distinctive red soil found in northwest Carroll County, nearby Frederick County, Maryland. Interestingly, Terra Rubra is also the name of the local estate where Francis Scott Key, the author of Star Spangled Banner, was born in 1779. So here we go. Breaking news, bridging the gap of inequality in real time. Francis Scott Key's legacy from anthem to advocacy. As the sun rises over the historic Terra Rubra plantation, the birthplace of Francis Scott Key, we reflect on the man being behind the stirring words, the Star Spangled Banner. Key's poetic anthem, penned during the War of 1812, was echoed through generations, symbolizing resilience and unity. But beyond the anthem lies a complex legacy on that one that intertwines patriotism with the fight of justice. Key, a Maryland lawyer, stood at the crossroads of history. His legal career spanned both sides of the emancipation struggle. While he owned slaves himself, he also defended the rights of those seeking freedom. Key's involvement in the landmark case of U.S. versus Reuben Crandall showcased his commitment to free speech, even when it challenged the status quo. But Key's legacy is not confined to courtrooms and quills. The quill, it extends to the very soul of Terra Rubra, where the red earth whispers stories of resilience and struggle. The same soil that cradled Key's childhood now bears witness to modern crisis, one that transcends time and geography and space and religion and basketball and bridges. As we mourn the recent tragedy of the bridge collapse, where it seems like the amount of people or the tone of the people that died would have been slaves of Francis Scott Key. They should give them his plantation. That's what they should do to rectify they families, the families of the people of that bridge collapse need to be have restitution of owning that plantation. If the women that have the sense right now out there playing basketball, if they use the sense that God gave them, they would go ahead and, because you on the spirit that Francis Scott Key would have defended them, if they win, they should make a whole basketball school out, a basketball center out of that plantation. As we mourn the recent tragedy of the bridge collapse, we confront a stark reality. Our infrastructure, the new infrastructure, that they're bringing into existence on April 8th, like our society, is frayed. The collapse claimed lives, severe severed connections, and exposed the gaping chasm of inequality. The bridge, once a symbol of progress, now stands as a haunting reminder of our collective failure. In the aftermath, we ask, how many more bridges must crumble before we bridge the gap of opportunity? The divide between affluence and deprivation, education and ignorance, healthcare and neglect, these are the fault lines threatening our nation's foundation. Perhaps it's time to rewrite our anthem, not with ink and parchment, but with action. Let us sing a new, hey, you want to hear a new song, can a dummy? Let us sing a new refrain, one that resonates across demographics, echoing Key's call for justice, love and light, and plant lives, Let us rebuild bridges, literal and metaphorical, so that no child, regardless of background, falls through the cracks. As we honor Francis, not me now, I'm not honoring Francis Scott Key's memory, but I'm making it my business to realize that everything is connected, including this April 8th movement of signals and stars and constellations and religions and wars. That the rockets' red glare and bombs bursting in air is the last signal. Let us remember that this anthem is not static. It is. This should be creepy in people's ears. The Star Spangled Banner. When you read the history of who Francis Scott Key was and everything else that was revolved around it, and that after 400 years of slavery, when people know that they're free, that this transference of energy is about to reset into the same thing, except it is not about your flesh. When you were first a straw man, let's go, Allison. What's her name? Alice in Wonderland? Was it Alice in Wonderland? No. Dorothy. The Wiz. First it was the straw man. And then you became property, like an animal. And then you became a person. But now that they're moving into internet protocol and taking your light, using your light code, this transference is saying you are no longer a person. You are a protocol and a patient of the United States. And we have the right to harness your light. It evolves with each generation, harmonizing the struggle of equality. The red earth of Terra Rubra urges us forward, urging us to bridge the gaps that divide us. In this real-time symphony, may we find the courage to mend what's broken. Minds are broken. Souls are broken. The system has been broken. One moment, please.
Self who is being created, to a true knowledge according to the image of the one who created him. The people who walk darkness will see a great light. Those who live in a dark land, the light will shine on them. God's promise, 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 promise. God's promise, 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 promise. God's mind is my mind is light. I'm in always reflecting His light. Always I acknowledge, no knowledge, no courage. Ooh, God, you promised that great day will come. Yes, God, you promised that I will see my son. You promised that He is by your side, and nothing can separate this love inside. No masters, no doctors can prescribe ways in my calling. Only His ways, oh ancient of days, can correct. He reflects the path I acknowledge. God's promise, 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 promise. God's promise, 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 promise.
We're holding.
God's promise, 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 promise.
Thank you for holding. Thank you for holding. All right. So now let me go into the scripture. So it just, as I know that everything is connected, it's like earth or dimensions and slices, but everything is connected. So I asked, where would I find the antelope in the scripture? And here we go. Jeremiah. So there's Jeremiah, Isaiah is before that. Okay. And 51. All right, here we go. Listen to this. I might end up reading all of 51. But Isaiah 51:20. Isaiah, oh goodness, 51:20 says, "For your sons have fainted and lie in the streets, helpless as wild antelopes caught in a net." Yours, you don't have to believe me. You could go and type in antelope. Where can you find antelope in the Bible? And it will give you the scriptures. As wild antelope caught in a net. So they're going to re-internet men like wild antelopes. Let me read the further up. As a matter of fact, I'm going to read all of it. I'm going to read all of it. But the word antelope, which was the slave ship that Francis Scott Key fought so hard for 7 years. Listen to the numbers. That's seventh gate in prophecy. 7 years. The 7 years that he fought for the antelope, the beings that were trapped or enslaved or trafficked within the antelope, would take me to Isaiah 51. Listen to me. Let me turn on these lights and make sure I can see real good. Listen to me, all who hope for deliverance, who seek the Lord. Considered query from which you are mind. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Consider the query from which you are mind, the rock from which you were cut. Yes, think about your ancestors, Abraham and Sarah, from whom you came. You worry about being small and few, but Abraham was the only one when I called him. But when I blessed him, he became a great nation. And the Lord will bless Israel again and make her deserts blossom. Her barren wilderness shall become as beautiful as the Garden of Eden. Remember when I told you and covered the difference between Abraham and then Abraham's two descendants, where the slave was free. He made the slave leave. They made the slave leave. They set the slave free. They said, "Get out of here with your child. Go." And the slave was free. So that's why it says that he was blessed with a great nation. And then he goes into Israel. The Lord will bless Israel again and make her deserts blossom, Her barren wilderness will become as beautiful as the Garden of Eden. Joy and gladness will be found there. Thanksgiving and lovely songs. Listen to me, oh my people. Oh, listen, oh Israel, for I will see the right prevails. That right prevails. My mercy and justice are coming soon. Your salvation is on the way. I will rule the nations. They shall wait for me and long for me to come. Look high in the skies and watch the earth beneath. For the sky shall disappear like smoke. The earth shall wear out like a garment, and the people of earth shall die like flies. But my salvation lasts forever. My righteous rule will never die or end. Listen to me. You know the right from wrong, and cherish my laws in your hearts. Don't be afraid of people's scorn and their slanderous talk, for the moth shall destroy them like garments. The worm shall eat them like wool. But my justice and mercy shall last forever, and my salvation from generation to generation. Awake, O Lord, rise up and robe yourselves with strength. Rouse yourself as the days of old when you slew Egypt, the dragon of the Nile. Are you not the same today? The mighty God who dried up the sea, making a path right through the same today. Wait, the mighty God who dried up the sea, making the path right through from your ransomed ones. The time will come when God's redeemed will all come home again. Then they shall be singing to Jerusalem. Then they shall come with singing to Jerusalem. Filled with joy and everlasting gladness, sorrow and mourning will all disappear. I, even I, so I, even I, am he who confronts you and gives you all this joy. So what right have you to fear mere mortal men who wither like grass and disappear? And yet you have no fear of your God, your maker. You have forgotten him, the one who spread the stars throughout the skies and made the earth. When man today is pretending that they making the stars in the skies, huh? Setting up what they call whole constellations of starlinks, sending beams from moon, sending beams from from Mars, sending beams from James Webb. But the main beams is the beams in the mental, pretending that they fighting and telling people that they fighting for people's freedom when we were free all along. With words and anthems and proclamations and codes. And yet you have no fear of God, your maker. You have forgotten him, the one who spread the stars throughout the skies and made the earth. Will you be in constant dread of men's oppression and fear their anger all day long? Soon, soon, you, slaves, shall be released. Dungeon, starvation, and death are not your fate. For I am the Lord your God. God is going to keep his promise. The Lord Almighty, who dried a path for you right through the sea between the roaring waves. And I have put my words in your mouth and hidden you safe within my hand. I planted the stars. Francis Scott Key ain't got nothing to do with star spangles. I planted the stars in place and molded them all in the earth. I am the one who says, Israel, you are mine. Wake up! Wake up, Jerusalem. This is what the word says. You have drunk enough from the cup of the fury of the Lord. You have drunk to the dregs the cup of terror and squeezed out last drops. Not one of her sons is left alive to help or to tell her what to do. These two things have been in your lot: desolation and destruction. Yes, famine and the sword. And who is left to sympathize? Who is left to comfort you? For your sons have fainted and lie in the streets helpless, like as the antelope caught in a net. The Lord has poured out his fury and rebuke upon them. But listen now to this afflicted ones, full of troubles and in your stupor, but not from being drunk. This is what the Lord says. The Lord your God, who cares for his people, says, see, I take from your hands the terrible cup. You shall drink no more of my fury. It is gone at last. But I will put the terrible cup into the hands who tormented you and trampled your souls to the dust and walked upon your backs. Hey, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. My mind is God's mind. Francis Scott Key, they the one who did it. He the one that put in the laws, and they and Spain and all the people, the descendants of particular beings, and the ones that decide they still want to work on behalf of what Francis Scott Key stood on. We'll tell you that we fighting for your freedom, but you ain't really free. And if you don't sing this song of freedom that was written by a man that owned slaves and pretended that he was fighting for freedom, if you don't sing this song and you don't stand here on time, and because his Star-Spangled Banner was written on whatever type of Greek gods that we all serve, if you don't sing it and act like you free, we're going to take away your rights. While the country and the world governments are having convulsions, tickled about what they're going to do to the people and how many people they can't kill and how many people they got to save and how many beings that are going to be endangered and how many is going to be on their endangered species list and who's not going to be on their endangered species list and what parts of the earth is going to be sunk in the ocean and what parts of the lands is going to be flooded, and how many more bridges that they got to bring down. How many children are going to go through torment of human trafficking? They say, yeah, we saved the slave boat, and we sent all them back to Africa, but we got the children. And we're going to use the religious beats. Let me go on to Jesus and what Jesus said real quick one more time. I just need something telling me to read that part one more time. Read it again. Read it again. Before I get off of here, I got to go and get ready. Go and get ready with my grands and keep planning on how God orders my steps for the 5 months. Get your hearts and minds right. Love and light will protect you through this transition that we're about to do. It will protect you from being put back to sleep or locked into the cells that they have waiting to trap the antelope into the net once again. It's 400 years They'll tell you it's 375. They won't remind you how the calendar jumped and skipped in 4 years here and 4 years there, 7 years as a slave, huh? Jesus said that if anyone tells you the Messiah has arrived at such a place or has appeared here or there, don't believe it. For false Christ shall arise and false prophets and will do wonderful miracles, so that if it were possible, even God's chosen ones would be deceived to know that Christ is in you. You are the reflection of Christ. Christ came that you know that you are a blueprint, that you won't be looking out. You will be using the power within that God speaks of in Ephesians 6. The power and the might of God is within you because you are a reflection of that love and light. Huh? And Jesus' greatest commandment was to love. So if somebody would be telling you, go look in the desert, deserted places like church, to find Christ. Christ is there in that building. The church is a hospital. A deserted places for souls that are sick, physical beings that are sick. The mortuary is in the bottom in the hospitals. The church is a place for the sick. And then when you get healed within the church, you come out and be a light somehow, some way to all the world in this generation. So if someone tells you the Messiah has returned and is out in the desert, don't you bother to go and look. Or if that he is hiding in a certain place, don't you believe it? For as the lightning flashes across the sky from the east to the west in your supra foramen, your super form, so shall it come in be where every eye is going to see. Nobody going to have to tell you because we all going to see him at the same time. And so shall my coming be when I, the Messiah, return. And wherever the carcass is, there the vultures will gather. The vultures are going to gather the black carcasses, the white carcasses of the government with their symbol of the vulture on a star-spangled banner. Will be gathering. It says they're going to gather. They're gathering Gog and Magog. They're gathering all the governments that stands on Artemis's accord to have control of your light. It transcended from Abraham's accord to Artemis' accord. Immediately after persecution in those days, the sun will be darkened. And the moon, meaning that this is a persecution, is the time. The moment of that ending of the 400 years of slavery into re-erecting it again in their ceremony. The sun will be darkened and the moon will not give light. That's why they have all these military on stances, on guard for what? How many minutes of darkness? Wouldn't that mean when the sun sets, which the sun never sets, But when darkness falls upon the face of the earth in the shadow hours, that military should be on guard every night. For the 12 hours of darkness that we call ourselves going to sleep. So just for a few minutes, they're gathering and preparing. And the moon will not give light, and the stars will seem to fall from the heavens, and the powers overshadowing the earth will be convulsed. And then at the last signal of my coming, at the last signal of my coming will appear in the heavens. There will be deep mourning on the earth. This is a saying that this is when we're going to see Jesus. Remember, no man knows. If they could have predicted it, they would be ready. What this movement is to put everybody back into the net that they trapped the antelope in all them years ago under the ceremony of Francis Scott Key's tone and resonance and resignation codes that he used from Guido Arezzo. And the nations of the world will see me arrive in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And I shall send forth my angels with the sound of a mighty trumpet blast, and they shall gather my chosen one from the farthest ends of the earth and heaven. Now learn your lesson from the fig tree, because again, this is just a sign and a symbol. Remember, there's going to be 5 months of protection from when. But the sign of the fig tree lets you know what season that all of this is supposed to happen. And right about now, the fig tree is beginning to get what? I should go and look and investigate. What's happening with the fig trees right now? Are the leaves getting tender? When her branches tender and the leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is almost here. Okay, so where's the fig tree at right now? Are the fig trees bare? I don't know, but this is supposed to be a sign. Just so when you see all these things begin to happen, you can know that my return is near, even at the door. Then at last, this age of slavery will come to a close. Greater light. Let me go and get on ready. And again, here's the recipe for today. Today's color is ultraviolet. Ultraviolet. This recipe, living, love and light, coconut, the egg of the islands, the milk of the islands, coconut, cabbage, honey, and ginger. Our pastor Sanders used to say, drink ye all of it. Greater light. Let me play this right quick.
Promise. God's promise, 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 promise.
King Ellis, greater light, Kenna dummy. Greater light, Kenna dummy.
Put him in yourself who is being created to a true knowledge according to the image of the one who created. The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. Those who live in a dark land, the light will shine on. Promise, 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 promise. God's promise, 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 promise. will always like knowledge. No knowledge, no college. Ooh, God, you promised that great day would come. Yes, God, you promised that I will see my son. You promised that he's by your side, and nothing. Put him a new self who is being created to a true knowledge according to the image of the one who created.